very precarious situation.
And I heard you say no timeline, meaning this could go on for a while?
It could go on for a while. I asked Ricardo Torres what he thinks will happen. Torres is a Cuban economist at American University in Washington, D.C. He says that in the short term, the most likely scenario is that Cuba's political allies step up and send the island much-needed fuel. And the most likely of those allies is Russia.
Because Russia is an oil-producing country. It needs cash to fund its war. And Russia is also a producer of equipment for power plants and the like. So I think that's the best chance that Cuba has.
And he points out that even when Cuba gets the electrical grid up and running, the island is still going to have rolling blackouts because there's simply no way it's going to obtain enough gas to generate electricity 24 hours a day.
Okay, so how is the Cuban government defending itself, since people certainly cannot be happy to be going without basic services?
Right. The Cuban government blames the problem on a decades-old U.S. embargo that has made it very difficult for the island to purchase commodities like fuel. And they say if the U.S. wanted to help, it could. But the U.S. government has dismissed those allegations, instead blaming the island's, quote, long-term mismanagement of its economic policy and resources. But, you have to imagine U.S. officials are worried. An estimated 10% of Cuba's population has fled over the last 3 years, mostly to the U.S., and this latest crisis could very well spur many more Cubans to try and leave.
Wow. Emily Green in Mexico City, thanks. This is Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Steve Inskeep.
And I'm Michelle Martin.
And I'm Michael Hill. Next hour on Morning Edition, artificial intelligence is being used during mammograms to help detect signs of heart disease in women. Women might be asked to pay extra for AI reads of their x-rays at their next screening. That story and more in about 15 minutes right here on Morning Edition. Right now, we're at 57 and clear in Soho, sunny and 80. It's one of those days where you need heat in the morning and maybe some air conditioning later in the day. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah, where high temperatures way above normal today and tomorrow as well, and even on Wednesday before we start to cool off. 57 now in Soho.
Support for WNYC comes from Pace University. At Pace, students learn for real life, acquiring knowledge and experience to help them land jobs at accounting firms, in tech, on stage and screen, and beyond. More information is available at pace.edu. The following message is from the MTA. Riders can tap to pay for their New York City subway and bus rides with their phone, contactless bank card, or get a refillable Omni card. Details at omni.info.
Should companies speak up if a presidential candidate loses and tries to take power by other means?
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Progressive Insurance, offering small business owners protection for what they've worked hard to build with over 30 customizable coverages. Learn more at progressivecommercial.com. And by Rubrik. When cyber attacks put businesses at risk, Rubrik provides the power to bounce back fast. More at Rubrik.com.
I'm David Brancaccio in New York. We've been looking at political polarization at the company level this election year, how companies intensify or ease political divides by taking sides, taking stands, and or bringing us together. But with voting underway in many states now, some advocacy groups are asking if companies will stay quiet if there were to be attempts to distort or change the outcome of the election after Election Day. Marketplace's Kimberly Adams has more.
Many election watchers are expecting a close and likely contested election outcome. But if it comes down to it, will the corporate world speak up?
There is a sort of call to arms to say, you business leader, you trusted brand, will you publicly commit now to validating the outcome of the 2024 election?
Najma Roberts is with the advocacy group Democracy Fund, but she says corporations these days are a bit risk-averse.
People do not want to be canceled. They don't want their brands to be canceled. They don't want to be politically attacked.
And the corporate world has plenty of recent examples of when taking a stand on DEI, LGBTQ rights, or a host of other issues led to exactly those outcomes, with some companies choosing to dial back on commitments as a result. So once the voting is done, says David Young with the Conference Board,
companies do not expect to change their external messaging due to the election, other than being even more cautious about potentially divisive topics.
The Conference Board surveyed business leaders about their plans post-November. And back in 2021, the group also tracked when, following the January 6th insurrection, about half of the companies surveyed suspended political donations to election deniers, but only 3% did so permanently. Several advocacy groups are now working to make it harder for companies to do that kind of backpedaling after this election, with public pledges like the one from the Leadership Now project. Daniela Ballou-Ayres is that group's CEO.
We've had over 150 leaders across the country sign a statement asking candidates, federal candidates, to pledge to certify election results.
Leadership Now has endorsed Kamala Harris for president, which Ballou-Ayres understands may be a bit much for some companies.
But the vast majority are comfortable, if this election process is undermined, being a voice for the protection of the system and the election process.
And for those companies that would rather just keep their heads down and not say anything, says David Young at the Conference Board,
choosing to stay out of it is viewed by some, by many, to be a choice. Inaction is an action.
Which, says Young, can also have consequences for a company's reputation and bottom line. In Washington, I'm Kimberly Adams for Marketplace.
At marketplace.org, there's a little button under our logo labeled Office Politics for all of our political polarization elements. Markets, S&P and Dow futures are both down 0.2%. NASDAQ futures are down 0.3%. Interest rates keep drifting upward, given a strong job market and strong consumer behavior. The 10-year interest rate now up at 4.12%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Amazon Business, aiming to help save time by offering smart business buying solutions so there's more time to focus on growing the business and less time doing the admin. More at AmazonBusiness.com. And by the John Templeton Foundation, funding interdisciplinary research and catalyzing conversations to inspire awe and wonder. Learn more at templeton.org. And by VantageScore, a leading inclusive and predictive credit score used by 8 out of 10 largest banks and over 3,400 banks and fintechs nationwide. VantageScore.com.